real quick, don't forget if you're getting credit for the class, email me. My email's on the front page. Let me know if you're undergraduate or graduate. Because I'll give you your assignments. I'll email you your assignments, and I'll make the assignments based off of what we've done here to make it even more practical for you. If you look at your last page on your handout, let's talk about stress management. Let me give you the 4 leading causes of stress. I use the acrostic PEAT. People, events, thoughts, emotions. These are the 4 leading causes of stress. Now, events should sound familiar. Remember our first session? We talked about 3 guarantees of painful events. And maybe the reason for the stress is because the way you're processing the stress, it just isn't working. Hans Selye was the guru of stress management back in the 50s, and he gave a test and said if you score this many points, 300 or more, it would be future illness within 18 months. And all he listed was events. And so if you go through these events, you're likely to get sick. How can you tell when people cause you stress?
When you're worried.
Say it again.
When you're worried.
Beforehand, all right? That's called, look at Isaiah, turn to 8:11. I love this emotion. In Isaiah 8:11, he gives an emotion which is pre-stress. What's it say in 8:11 of Isaiah?
The Lord spoke to me with his strong hand upon me, warning me not to follow the way of this people, he said.
Keep going.
Do not call conspiracy everything that these people call conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear, and do not dread it.
Do not dread it. Dread is pre-stress. What happens is we've already had previous encounters with either the person or the event, and because they were negative, we've now developed dread. This is why my dentist is amazing. Before he sees you, he has you fill out a questionnaire. I love that. And one of his questionnaire questions is this: have you had previous bad experience with the dentist? I raised my hand. I had a root canal done when I was in 6th grade in California. I tried to convince Dr. Fraga, Novocaine doesn't work for me. Carol, the assistant, when she saw me, she knew my pain level. Novocaine does not work for me. Guess what they gave me for painkiller? Novocaine. When they're doing all the drilling, I'm doing all the filling. One day my dad was home from his tour, and he went and he heard me screaming, and he walked in and goes, Dr. Fraga, have I told you that Novocaine doesn't work for me? And the dentist looked at my dad and goes, Novocaine doesn't work for you. And he looked at me and goes, Novocaine doesn't work for you? No, he goes, you can feel everything. The idea of going to the dentist today? No. I golf with my dentist. One day he looked at me and said, you hate me. I said, no, don't hate you. Hate what you do. Absolutely. Previous trauma. Previous trauma. So all of a sudden, here's how you can tell. Let me give you a really quick assessment on how you can tell people are causing you stress. When people are causing you stress, time slows down. If they're really causing you stress, you might even feel that time is going backwards. Now here's what's neat. When people are stress reducers, instead of producers, when they're stress reducers, time flies. Would you agree? Now, people. Now, let me give you a solution to people's stress. 2 verses in Proverbs. Look at Proverbs 12:26. How do I deal with people's stress? Proverbs 12:26. What does it say?
The righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked leads them astray.
The NIV says, a righteous man is cautious in friendship. I think it's okay to be very cautious with who you make friendship. We know what it says in 2 Corinthians 6:14. It says, do not be unequally yoked. I don't think that's just in marriage. I think it's in business. I think it's in life. So I've got to be cautious with who I allow in my life. Look at Proverbs 13:20.
He who walks with the wise grows wise, but a companion of fools suffers harm.
I love the second part of that verse. A companion of fools suffers harm. Why? Because they're fools. And fools tend to do foolish things. What's it mean to be a companion? You're in on it. I like reversing Proverbs. Read the first line again.
He who walks with the wise grows wise.
Let me reverse that. He who walks with a stupid grows stupid. I can document right now that if college students watch SpongeBob, they become dumb. Okay, this doesn't take a PhD to go, wonder why that is. Because the show is not what? Educational or challenging. So I've got to be careful with the people I allow around me. Let me give you another great way to deal with people's stress. Look at John 7:1. People stress. John 7:1. By the way, somebody get Mark 3:21. Tell me if Jesus understood people's stress. Mark 3:21. So let's get John 7:1 and Mark 3:21. Who's got John 7:1 for me?
After these things, Jesus walked in Galilee, for he would not walk in Jewry, because the Jews sought to kill him.
He would not walk in certain places. In other words, George, Jesus purposely stayed away from certain places. Example. Let's say I've got a relative who creates tons of stress for me, and it's a family reunion. Ready? Don't sit with them. Would you agree? Example, if I burn down your house 5 times, please do me a favor, don't invite me over for a barbecue. And I may look at you and go, well, you haven't forgiven me. Well, you can still forgive me and not reconcile. Because if I'm going to hurt you again, I think reconciliation is ridiculous in that case. Muncie, several years ago, we had a story of a man who was stabbed in the thigh with a steak knife by his girlfriend. They went to the hospital. He's fine. 4 weeks later, she stabbed him again. And I'm thinking, why in the world would you give somebody a second chance to stab you. This is Samson. Samson's a moron. Delilah says to him, what can I do to make you as weak as any other man? And I love Samson. What did Samson finally do? He told her, you know I want your yellow car. You know that.
I do now.
You do know it. So I cozy up to him and I start asking questions like, where do you hide the spare key? Well, first off, he doesn't want to tell me. Oh, come on, now, trust me, trust me. Or better yet, how about the person down in southern Indiana who put on her Facebook page, gone for 2 weeks. When she got back to her house 2 weeks later, everything was gone. The police said, do you have anybody who might do this? No. And they said, what about Facebook friends? So the police went through her Facebook friends. One of them was a thief. They went to his house. They found her stuff. I look at people and go, if people are causing you stress, do what? Stay away. Look at Mark 3:21.
And when his family heard it, they went out to seize him, for people were saying, he is beside himself.
Jesus' own family thought he was nuts. What would that do to him? Say it again. You bet it would. John 7:5 says his brothers didn't believe in him. The nice thing is, up in the upper room after the crucifixion, we find Jesus' brothers. Wow. People stress. Event stress. What's the T? Thoughts. Can my thinking cause stress? In fact, are you guys aware of how many verses in the Bible there are just on thoughts? One of my journals I wrote, it's called A Journal and Journey into Godly Thinking. It's 49 verses on thoughts. Because I try to get my clientele to think different. Can Satan read our minds? No. Okay, let me give you some questions. Find a blank page. Do not show me these answers. Ready? Write a number between 1 and 9. Write a number down between 1 and 9. Do not show it to me. I've not seen your numbers. Number 2, multiply the number by 9. Number 3, if your answer is a 2-digit number, if it's a 2-digit number, add the 2 digits together. Don't show me your answer. Number 4, subtract 5 from that number. So if it's 11, it would be 6. Using our alphabet, assign a letter that corresponds with that number. So if it's a 2, it would be B. If it's 1, it would be A. So assign a letter that corresponds to that number in our alphabet. Write a country that begins with that letter. Circle the second letter of that country. Write an animal, not a bird or fish. That begins with that letter. The last question, write the color of that animal. Are you ready? Emily? Is it Emily? Did you write gray? How many of you wrote gray? Raise your hand, please. How did I know gray?
It was determined no matter what number you chose.
How?
Well, anytime you multiply a number by 9, a single digit number by 9, you add them up, you're going to get 9.
Okay, now did you see it? There's no trick. But when I do this with kids, they go, oh, you read my mind. No, I didn't read your mind. 9 times any number is always a number that has 2 digits. When you add them together, always equals 9. 27, 9. 36, 9. 45, 54, 63, 72. It's always 9. Most people in America, when you're given the letter D, you wrote the country Denmark. How many of you wrote Denmark? Now, can you think of another country that begins with D? Go ahead.
Dan?
Dan.
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic. My daughter, when she's doing this, she knows me well and she goes, I know Dad's pulling a trick here. She wrote Djibouti, which begins with a D. And she's laughing. I looked at the class, the group, and I said, do not follow my daughter. I didn't even know how to spell Djibouti. Now, when you said Denmark, the second letter is E. Most of you wrote elephant. How many of you wrote elephant? And when you think of elephant, you think of gray. Now, Satan can't read our minds, but he loves to inject stuff into it. In a given day, how many thoughts do you have? About 70,000. Go ahead.
I was thinking one time that he's not able to read our minds, but he is able to read our signs.
Correct.
When you're like acting like a stress or the way you acting, it says a lot about you.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're crying right now, I know one of two things. You're either happy or sad.
Right.
I'm going to go with sad. I might come over to you and say, why are you sad? He can read body language. What Satan learned from Adam and Eve until every person on this planet, he's using against us right now. In fact, in spiritual warfare, what two things does Satan know about us? Only 2 things. Only 2.
Our past.
1, he knows our past. Excellent. What's he do with your past?
He rinse it out.
He'll shove it down your throat. Why? Because it works.
He's electronic. He reads our cookies.
Stay away from my machine. What else does he know?
That's 6,000 years of practice of human.
Our weaknesses. What's he do with our weakness? He exploits it.
Magnifies.
Say it again.
Well, I was thinking too. Magnify.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was telling the class or group this morning for breakfast, I dropped out of one class in college. One. I hated it. Public speaking. And I told God, I would never speak in public. I've been on the radio, I've been on TV, I'm going, broke that promise. I feel like half the time I'm Jonah going, okay, I'll listen to you. Can you get me out of the whale? Okay. Now, so it's people, events, thoughts. Let me give you a great verse on thoughts. Philippians 4:8. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure. There's 4 criteria. Let's do the next 4. Whatever is lovely, admirable, excellent, and praiseworthy. Think on these things. Look at 1 Corinthians 14:20. Another great verse on thoughts. The sad thing is, we are the exact opposite of this verse. Terry?
Brethren, do not be children in understanding, however in malice be babes, but in understanding be mature.
In malice be babes. NIV says, in regard to evil, be infants. I know too many people who, instead of being infants in regard to evil, they're adults. Another verse on thoughts I like. Look what it says in 2 Corinthians 10:3-5. Second Corinthians 10:3-5.
For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ.
Read that last line again.
And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ.
As a Christian counselor, that's one of my goals for my clients. Let's take your thoughts captive and make them, I love the word, obedient. What does it mean to be obedient? Submissive. My thoughts submit to God's thoughts. Look at 2 verses in Ecclesiastes. This is still on thoughts. 7:23. of Ecclesiastes.
All this I tested by wisdom, and I said, I am determined to be wise, but this was beyond me.
I'm determined to be wise. But this is what? What does that mean?
I can't do it all.
I can't do it on my own. The richest, wisest man in the world admitted it was beyond him. Let me pull up another verse for you. Look what it says in 7:10 of Ecclesiastes. Do not say, why were the old days better than these? It is not wise to ask such questions. How come?
Because it'll bring the moment that you're in, it'll take that contentment that could be there away, and make you focus on the things that could have been.
Did you see that? What a great answer. It would take the moment you're in and take away contentment. How many times have you heard people talk about the good old days? They're reminiscing. Explain?
That they wish they were back in Egypt.
We wish we were back in Egypt. We had leeks and onions by the Nile. We had plenty of fish. Okay, we were in bondage and getting beaten and we were getting, everything was bad. But we had food. And God gave us manna. And we hate manna. In fact, what does the word manna mean? What is it? I think it's real. What is this stuff? You guys remember Keith Green? Love Keith Green. One of his songs talked about banana bread. What a great singer. You know, it's not wise to ask such things. Look at 11:10 of Ecclesiastes.
So remove grief and anger from your heart. Put away pain from your body, because childhood and the prime of life are fleeting.
Childhood and the prime of life are fleeting. By the way, if you want to do a really cool individual Bible study sometime, let me give you a topic. Look up the word consider. Just look at the word consider. Look what it says in Ecclesiastes 7:13. Seven 13. What's it say? Go ahead.
What God has done. Who can straighten what he has made crooked?
Consider what God has done. Look at the next line. When times are good, be happy. But he gives us a solution. But when times are bad, consider. God has made the one as well as the other. Therefore, a man cannot discover anything about his future. I would encourage you when it comes to thoughts, look up the word consider, find some verses when you're working with people and say, well, instead of the way you think now, here's what the Bible says you should consider. Let me show you something interesting about Romans. I love Romans. The first part of Romans, Paul is just given history. The second part of Romans, Paul is given relationship stuff. Look at Romans 16, chapter 16. He is going to thank people. But in verse 17, look what Paul writes about people. Romans 16, 17.
I urge you, brothers, to watch out for those who cause divisions and put obstacles in your way that are contrary to the teaching you have learned. Keep away from them.
He just said, I'm going to thank all these people. I got to pause here. Watch out for the people that cause division. Why would people cause division? Say it again. Exactly right. They're going to do it for an advantage. What's her name?
Erica?
Erica. Promise me you'll answer my question yes or no. Promise?
Yes.
Okay, you guys are all my witnesses. I just want a yes or no answer. That's all you can do. Got it? Have you stopped stealing from church?
Yes.
Yes means what?
She was already stealing.
She's already stealing. If she says no, she's currently stealing. I got her. People stress. Would people do that to us?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And you look at that and go, wow, he says, watch out for people who are divisive. There are people who love getting subcutaneous under our skin. I teach kids how to deal with bullies. And one of my favorite techniques is called radical agreement. Okay, your turn. Tell me you hate my shirt.
I hate your shirt.
So do I. I won. When she tells me she hates my shirt, what is she hoping for? Hurt my feelings, and I dialogue back. Tell me this is the worst class you've ever had, ever. No. Thank you not being able to say that. Go ahead and say it anyway, just for pretend.
Okay. This is the worst class I have ever been in.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Who won? I did. There are people who love getting to us. The sad thing is, we play well with them. And then they get to us. We gotta learn not to play. I'm a big fan of saying, okay, and then you'd slowly turn and walk away. I had a psychiatrist call me out of Georgia when I got my book on forgiveness done. And we're talking on the phone, he goes, I can't believe you tell people who've been molested and raped to forgive the perpetrator. And he's going off on my book. And I said, stop reading it. He still wants a dialogue. And he's telling me that he doesn't like the book. I said, stop reading it. And he goes, I disagree with the author. I said, I don't. I know what he wants. His goal is to what? Try to silence me. Put down 5 S's. With people in spiritual warfare, give me 5 things they want to do to us. They all begin with S. You already got the one. Silence. Give me 4 more. What are 5 things the world wants to do with us as Christians? They all begin with S. Silence us. Shame us. Well, don't that. Maybe we may do 6 now. Give me 3 more. Slander. 2 more. Suppress. And shun. Look at 1 Peter 4, 12 and 13. First Peter 4, 12 and 13. This is one of my favorite verses in the Bible on dealing with people's stress and event stress.
Beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal among you, which comes upon you for your testing, as though some strange thing were happening to you. But to the degree that you share the sufferings of Christ, keep on rejoicing, so that also at the revelation of his glory you may rejoice with exultation.
He just gave me 3 things to do when I'm under people and event stress. Point 1, don't be surprised. Point 2, it's not strange. What's it mean it's not strange? You should expect it. The third thing he said is, rejoice. That takes a lot of self-discipline. When you are surprised by painful events, what happens?
Your coping mechanisms fail.
Remember guarantee number 2? We develop coping skills. When we're surprised, say it again.
Coping mechanisms fail.
They fail. Several years ago, I was working at cardiac rehab at Ball Memorial, and for just a check, I had them check my blood pressure. They checked my blood pressure, it's doing great. An hour later, I'm upstairs 3 levels at my doctor's office. He checked my blood pressure. It was different. It was higher than it was downstairs. And I looked at him and I gave him the numbers from downstairs. He goes, your blood pressure's higher up here. I said, are you causing me stress? The white coat philosophy says The minute you get your blood pressure taken by a doctor or a nurse, how many, 10 points higher, maybe 15 points higher, just because of what?
It's because you see that healthcare provider.
Just because you see the healthcare provider. When my dentist called me the other day, he promised me he wouldn't need needles. He called me before the procedure and he goes, Charlie, I'm sorry, we're going to numb you. He knows me. I'm sarcastic. I said, oh, that is just great. Now, he does something I love. He has flavored gloves. And he'll look at me and say, what flavor of glove do you want? Cherry. And then he'll pre-numb me with that goo. And my response is, numb it again. And when he's talking to me during the procedure, I'll go, shh. He'll say, why? My coping skill, I'm not here. And when you're talking to me, you're making me here. One day he looks at me and goes, when you're not here, where are you? I'm on the beach. I know my coping skill. If they work, they're great. If they don't work, as you said, they'll actually break down. What happens when a coping skill breaks down? Blood pressure goes up. What happens to me emotionally? Anxious, depressed. I want you to work on your thought life. Hard on your thought life. I work with too many people who don't think about what they're thinking about. And then when I listen to their, can I show you something really cool? One reason why I love counseling is I get to introduce you to your thoughts. I think that thinking a thought is totally different than hearing it. We think thoughts all the time. But when I get you to hear your thought, and now you're going, did I just say that? That to me is now called insight. Example, when I work with abuse victims, the typical abuse victim is going to blame who? Themselves. Here's my ace in the hole. I will show you how to cut that quick. You ready? Here's what I tell my clients. I will allow you to blame yourself for the abuse. Under one condition. If the same thing happened to your daughter, you blame her. What do my clients say in that scenario? Why?
They know it's not true.
They look at me and go, it wasn't her fault. So I look and go, oh, so in the same scenario, if it happened to her, it's not her fault, but when it happened to you, it's your fault. You know the best way to spot a lie? Answer inconsistency. I put on Facebook last night, how do you not believe in God when our whole universe is in constant velocity? How fast are we going on our axis right now? Around? 1,000 miles an hour. How fast are we rotating around the sun? 64,000 miles an hour. We're booking. Here's what's cool. It's constant velocity. Here's a great belief system. For there to be constant velocity, there's got to be a constant energy source. I can only think of one constant energy source. Who is it? God? Hebrews 13:8. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Malachi 3:6. I, the Lord, don't change, so you're not destroyed. If God were not constant, we're a wreck. Example. Let's slow the planet down. Instead of 1,000 miles an hour, let's make it 100. Now on Earth time, a day is now 240 hours. What would happen today if we experienced 120 hours in a row of darkness? All the plants would die. Well, who eats the plants? The animals. The animals now have no food. All the animals would die. Uh-oh. Who eats the animals? Humans. Plants die, animals die, humans die. We're dead. And I love evolutionists. It just happens our Earth rotates this quick. In fact, I can't remember the guy's name who said, Richard Dawkins said, what created the universe was gravity. Let's assume he's right. Okay, I have a question for you, Mr. Dawkins. Who created gravity? Well, it just happened to be there. Oh, ain't that lucky? I love evolution that says human beings came about when lightning struck a pond. A goo was formed, primordial ooze, and all of a sudden this thing developed, and eventually it became another thing, and eventually that thing flipped up on land and began to breathe. What? By the way, let me show you how to deal with that lie. What's the most common thing that lightning strikes on this planet every day? What's the most common thing?
Golfers.
Ow! And you know I like to golf. Shame on you. Water. Okay, now, evolution said life started when lightning struck what? Water. We should see people evolving or life being created every day. Absolutely, we should.
Little bunny foo
Jumping through the forest. Why do we not see it? Oh, here's what they say. I love this lie. Well, but it happened to be the exact. My book, The Clowns That Left the Circus, is based off of one question. It's only 5 words. What is wrong with you? I'm writing 13 series of books based on that one question. When they look at me and say things like, we should take all the ISIS terrorists and give them jobs, my response is 5 words, what is wrong with you? And the neat thing is, you hear what's wrong with them because they're speaking their thoughts. The last one, the E. How do you deal with emotions? Let me give you solutions. All right, for fear, 2 verses. Psalm 34:4. And Psalm 56:3. Who's got 34:4? Please.
I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears.
Give me a solution for fear. Say it again. Seek God. Don't look at the problem. Look at the solution. Look at Psalm 56:3.
When I am afraid, I put my trust in you.
Give me the solution for fear.
Put the trust in God.
Put trust back in God. Okay, what's the solution for guilt? James 5:16. Confession. Now, do me a favor. When you confess a sin, make sure you confess a sin to somebody who is trustworthy. We meet at a retreat, Mark. We're told to get with people we barely know, so you and I get together, and we're told to share our deepest, darkest, disgusting stuff. So Mark's told me all about him. And now it's my turn. Mark, please ask me what my biggest weakness is.
What's your biggest weakness?
Gossip.
Shoot me now.
Shoot me now. This is where Mark wants to go. Can I take a big erase or just erase everything I've told you for the last 30 minutes? When you confess, make sure you confess to who? People who can what? Be trustworthy. What's the long-term solution for guilt? Ephesians 2, 8, and 9. Emily, please.
For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast.
What is God's solution long-term for guilt? Grace. So fear, when you're afraid, seek God. When you're afraid, not only seek Him, trust Him. Recognize that God has everything, I love this, under His control. The word sovereign. Spell the word sovereign. All right, now watch. There's two words in the word sovereign. The word over and the word reign. You know what sovereign means? God is over and He reigns. What's it mean to be over? He's above. Okay, so we got fear, seek God, trust God. We got guilt, confess, understand grace. What's the solution for bitterness? Forgiveness. The best verse in the Bible to understand forgiveness. Look at Psalm 103 and read verse 12. This is the best visual verse in the Bible to understand forgiveness. Psalm 103:12.
As far as the east is from the west, so far has He removed our transgressions from us.
When David wrote east to west, please be aware east and west never meet. If he wrote north and south, they do. They meet. If you walk north on this planet, eventually, you're going to be walking south. If you walk east on this planet, you can walk east as long as you want. The only way east and west meet is when you turn around. Look at Luke 9 and read 62. When it comes to forgiveness of self, I got to recognize when God forgives me, He separates me from my sin, and I got to do Luke 9:62. Jesus says, if you're plowing, you can't do what? Read the verse for me. L-U-K-E, Luke. I was helping him. He's from Ohio, so I gotta. You guys know what Buckeyes are, right? Buckeyes are worthless nuts. Okay.
But Jesus said to them, no one after putting his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of God.
You put your hand to the plow. Why not look back? Crooked furrow. Paul writes this. One thing I know, forgetting what is behind. I press on. I press forward. I got to understand forgiveness. Okay, let's go to the last one and we'll close. What's the solution for inappropriate self-esteem, the emotion of inappropriate self-esteem? Look at Matthew 27:10. If you want a godly identity, your first step has to be this one. Matthew 27:10. Josh.
And they used them to buy the potter's field as the
Hold it, I'm sorry. 23:10. They used them to buy the, where's Charlie going? We gotta go buy the potter's field. I'm sorry. That's right, he's from Indiana. Oh. George. I was wrong on that verse. 23:10. Let's do that one now.
All right. Nor are you to be called teacher, for you have one teacher, the Christ.
Who wants to be our teacher? Who wrote that verse? Who said that verse? He did. He just said, let me be your teacher. The first step to having godly self-esteem, let him be our teacher. The second step is, you be good what? You be good students. So when the teacher tells you who you are, you believe him. Now, here's what I love about Scripture. Turn to Isaiah 43 and quietly read verse 4. This passage will tell me 4 things about me. 4. You will miss the 4th one. Most of you will miss the 4th one. You'll actually read it, but you'll miss it. This is why I need to be a good student. Isaiah 43:4. It gives me 4 identities, but I've already warned you, I will miss the 4th one. Josh, read the verse for me.
Since you are precious and honored in my sight, and because I love you, I will give men in exchange for you, and people in exchange for your life.
What 4 things are we to God?
Precious.
1,
Honor,
2,
Love.
3.
worthy of sacrifice.
Say it.
Worthy of sacrifice.
We're exchangeable. Who was our exchange? Jesus. Let me explain the gospel to you in 1 verse. God made him who had no sin to become sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Did Jesus have to die? No. John 10:18 says, no one takes my life from me. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. Jesus did not have to die for us. You want to build godly self-esteem? Build your esteem on the crucifixion of Jesus. This is why I said earlier, Christians who have low self-esteem drive me nuts. How can you believe that the God of this universe sacrificed himself on a cross for you and you feel like you're worthless? Isn't that sad? Fear. Solution. Seek God, trust God. Guilt. Confess. Understand grace. Bitterness. Forgive people who've wronged you, and for God to forgive you. Understand more about forgiveness. As far as East is from the West, we got to understand what forgiveness is. Inappropriate self-esteem. Number 1, learn from God who you are. Number 2, be a good student. George, I love what you said at breakfast. You said if you're in a seminar and you're sleeping, what'd you say? Sleeping is a what? Sleeping's an opinion. It is. God's got an opinion. Do me a favor. Don't sleep through it. He says, you are precious. You are honored. You're loved. You're exchangeable. David writes in Psalm 139, 13 through 16, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I love the statement, I know that full well. How do we deal with this thing called stress? I gave you solutions. By the way, this so works. Here's my challenge for you. Start working on the Bible study, consider. And when you find a verse, start writing about why you should consider that. Because when we start considering what the Bible says to consider, what happens? We have a transforming and renewing of the mind. Hebrews says this, consider him who faced such opposition, so that you would not grow weary and lose heart. Consider. Wow. Right, you guys have been great. Once again, two things. If you're taking this class for credit, email me. My email's on the first page. Make sure you spell Charlie C-H-A-R-L-E-Y. If you spell it I-E, it goes to a guy in Pennsylvania and he's really nasty. One of my clients wrote a email to me and they spelled Charlie wrong. And the guy from Pennsylvania emailed me. And he basically wrote, I am not a Christian counselor. I wrote back, I figured that out. All right, let's close in prayer. Father God, you are amazing. Help us to consider what we should consider and then apply these things to life. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. 10-minute break. We're back at George. They take a 5-minute break. 5-minute break. 5-minute break.